Hi, Jay. I saw your comment here, and I'm assuming your name is Jay. You've been active, commenting on videos, supporting what we're doing, and just involved in the process for a long time. I know we've talked, we've probably met, and I just have to sincerely apologize. I couldn't find your property. I was trying to just go back here and try and figure that might have been your last name. I know Jay's your first name. Anyway, I am so sorry. I would comment and give you a direct message on your property, but I just thought since you're putting this publicly, maybe some other people will see this and think the same thing, and it deserves an explanation because I can see how you might think something is misleading here. And I would just 100% agree with you that all of this is misleading, and let's just dive into it. So if I said I saved you $10,000, then no. Let's rephrase that because the wording actually matters significantly, and that's the reason why all this is misleading. Is because if I don't use very specific words to communicate exactly what I'm trying to say, then the amount of cascading explanations I have to give to explain what I'm trying to explain, it just gets out of hand. So let me just give you right here on the surface, when you see total appraised, this number doesn't have anything to do with an appraisal. It has everything to do with your homestead capped value. If you have a homestead exemption, this number is going to be capped at 10% gain per year. But what you're saying is if I came along here and let's say specifically on this property, this one was valued at $339. Let's just put that into a calculator for my sake here, so I'm not going to be able to do this in my head. 339, 561 minus, let's say I got it down to 299, 779. That would be a $39,000 decrease. Now, what you might be thinking is, well, that seems misleading because number one, it didn't decrease 39,000. It only decreased from 317 down to 299. Well, that's not. Yeah, I can see how somebody would say that because it's going from 1 year to the next. It actually, in this situation, did actually go down, but that's not what I really have control over. The thing that I have control over that I'm trying to affect is they proposed a value of 339. If you go look at the value notice, then you'll see they proposed a value of 339, and then let's see here, 339, and then I got so if nobody would have protested in this case, the market value would have been 339. In this case, I got it down to 299. But you might be thinking, well, that's not what they base your taxes on. You're right. They base it on this number over here. And so this number is capped out at 10% increase per year. So what I would say to that is let's just figure out what that appraised value would be. In fact, we don't even have to do the calculation. I'm going to do it for the sake of everybody out there. For some reason, when I do this calculation, so you're going to add 10%, it helps. It helps understand it. So if I add 10%, it'd be 308. So if I look over here on that value notice, that number was 308. That number would have been, that 308 would have been equal to 339 if it weren't for the homestead exemption. I can't do anything about this number. It's calculated based on a formula. It's 10%. It's capped out at 10% gain per year. Once it hits that 10% threshold, it stops. The real opinion of what they think your home is worth is this 339. Since it's based off of an opinion and not a formula, then I can give them a difference of opinion and protest this and then get it down. So, but let's just take your point here. If I was to take this, if I was just to take, well, I only got the taxable value from 308,550 down to 299, whatever it was, 299, 779. Then that's only an $8,771 decrease instead of a $39,000 decrease. And you say, well, that's misleading. If I went around parading that I got a $39,000 reduction, then that's not actually true because it only affected the tax bill by $8,771. And I would say, you're absolutely correct. Here's the problem. It doesn't just stop there. if you want to know the truth, this 8,771, if I was to brag about that, that would even be misleading because that requires further explanation, and I'm going to give it to you here in just a second. But what I've been hired and tasked to do is to protest the value that I have the authority, ability, legal option to protest. And that is this number right here. And when we look at my effectiveness in getting that number down, that goes from this notified value, what it would have been if I didn't protest, to what it was because I protested. That's that bigger number. Okay. Now, how does that affect your tax bill? That's where it starts getting really complicated. I kind of just have to wall it off right there and say, all right, I'm not going to explain anything else because if I tried to, people don't have time for that. It requires too much explanation. It would be an hour-long video, and I'm probably not kidding on that. It's going to be pretty close to that. And so I'm going to dig into that. Before I go there, I want to show you one more thing, and then I'm going to explain why even that $8,000 number would be misleading if I even just gave that. Hang tight. All right, so on the heels of being accused of putting out something that's misleading, and you didn't try to insinuate any kind of intention. You're just saying it's misleading, and without accusing me of doing anything dishonest, it's just misleading in a very kind of like agnostic-ish kind of way as far as placing blame and that sort of thing. So I'm not trying to say you're saying I'm doing something bad, but on the heels of a comment like that, the next step is generally, if I was just to predict, you're misleading because you're trying to stick some money in your pocket, whatnot. So I wanted to go into this cost of service blank because I do have that out here, and you might be wondering, well, how in the world do you calculate that? Well, first of all, in this situation, this property, this is the exact property we're just looking at on the appraisal district website. I have amount of reduction $39,782. I think you can understand how I calculated that number. That is actually how much I got reduced from the value by protesting. That's the honest answer of how much I got reduced. Now, how much does it actually affect your tax bill? Well, it's only that 8,700 number. Okay. Well, if I was to start calculating, I'm going to just take this. I'm going to take a very average tax rate. Let's just call it times 0.0226. That would be $198, okay, of actual money. So you say, well, why does this say $300? Well, it says $300 because of this right here. Let's hover above that. It says, it is common for tax consultant companies to charge a flat fee or percentage of how much they saved you. The cost of service shown illustrates what you could expect to pay a commonly charged fee for comparable service with another company. Now, two different styles of pay is what people usually do. It's either going to be a flat fee or a percentage. Let's take a look at both. Okay, if I was to Google property tax protest flat fee, the number one source that comes is right here. Let's just click over there. This lady, Tiffany Hamill's her name. She's top notch. She's amazing. She's an attorney. She doesn't have any special abilities outside of me, other than some of her authorities do extend beyond what mine have because she's an attorney. However, as far as her tips and tricks on getting values reduced, we all have our own tips and tricks. She's very effective. I'm very effective. I have no problem with her at all. I think she's worth every penny she charges. In fact, if you're going to pay somebody, I think that you should consider hiring her and paying her. Now, the question is, how much would you pay her? Well, here's her flat fee range. It's kind of bracketed, and this is pretty standard for the industry. And so what I did is I just said, well, if I'm going to just tell people how much money they're saving by not hiring someone, by going with me, it's going to, I felt like $300 was pretty decent amount to put on there. It's not the highest, it's not the lowest, it's somewhere kind of an average. $350,000 is about the average value of a home here. So that seemed like an honest, non-misleading way to approach it. Now, the other thing is that percentage savings. If you were to look at who protests more property values than anybody else, you would find that that guy is me. But second line is O'Connor and Associates. Okay, so O'Connor and Associates is the big dog behind me. And if you were to click, just find their website just like this and sign up. Click on their terms page right here, and then you'll scroll in here. Let me zoom in. What you'll find is they charge a contingency fee equal to 50% of the estimated tax savings. Okay, now The real question is, well, how do you estimate 50% of the tax savings? That is actually a number that's a lot more difficult to come by, because then all these other numbers start to become relevant. Well, rather than trying to give everybody a PhD in property tax, which I'm still working on mine, by the way, it's like metaphorically, it's every year I learn something new. It's just ridiculous how many layers and layers upon layers of terminology and different lingo where you have to learn that appraised value actually doesn't have anything to do with an appraisal. It means homestead cap value, on and on and on. Let me just show you how, if you log in and you see a number for your estimated fee and it's higher than $300, what the reason is because we've estimated 50% of the savings of what we actually you stuck in your pocket. The way we would do that is you just go to the appraisal district page here, you click on this link, that will bridge you over to the tax assessor's website, where there's a button on here that's absolutely hidden. I'll show you that button. No, I'm not. I'm going to show you this real quick. Okay, so here's an actual tax bill, and then I'm going to show you how we can calculate this, how you can run your own numbers and stuff like that. So if we're going to calculate how much money we actually saved you, what we have to do is we have to calculate for the tax bill for each one of these entities. Let me make it a little bigger. So the city of Fort Worth, they have unique exemptions and a unique tax rate. So the amount of savings is going to be far different. If I cut your value in half, your tax value in half, then they're still going to subtract a certain amount for exemptions, and then they're going to do the math based on that. It's going to be a different tax rate, and here you go. Oh, well, if you're going to get down to the nitty gritty on this, let's see here, tax rates, Tarrant County. Let me just show you. This is the tip of the iceberg. They put out the tax rates and the exemptions for a fraction of the exemptions that exist. There are so many exemptions, I can't even begin to describe how many are. I think there's 20 something exemptions. It's outlandish, but for each exemption, you have all these different figures that they can calculate. So this is veteran exemptions, different levels of disability. If you're a veteran, you have whether or not it has a tax ceiling. Okay, and then you've got these actual reduction amounts. It can be in a flat fee or a percentage. So if you're going to do an honest, non-misleading assessment, you really need to show people all this stuff. And it's just too much. So once you calculate it for all these, you figure out which exemptions, here's your exemption area, how you figure out which exemptions apply, which areas offer which kind of exemption. Then you can look at the actual taxable value. That's after all the exemptions and all the stuff is taken into account. Then you get this number, and then you calculate based on the tax rate. And then once you do the math, you can figure out how much savings. Well, the truth is, we actually did that calculation. It is not easy. It took a ridiculous amount of time, because beyond all of this stuff, you still have human beings that enter this stuff into a database, and so you'll have some exemption classifications that have typos and exemptions that have phased out, and then the law changes in certain years, and it just goes on and on and on. So for it to not be misleading, it's just not practical. So you're right, it is misleading, but it's only for practical purposes, and then we try to take the most honest way we can. Here's a way you can go do the math yourself. Click this button right here. You can zoom over. Here's all of this. Here's you can change this value to $2.99, whatever, and then hit the calculate button, and you can look at, well, how much would the savings be if it was whatever that number was. Let's just go look at it. 8,771. Let's say if I got that reduced off the appraised value, this will help do a lot of the math for you. And then you can see it's like $60 here. But this stuff, once you actually start getting into the nitty gritty on what it is, sometimes you'll find that this isn't even accurate, and this can be misleading. It's just wild. And so here's the deal. Here's the deal. How much does all this matter for our emotional, comfort and satisfaction? how misleading is this, and how much effort and what should we do to make sure it's not misleading? We have to draw a line somewhere, and the line is, okay, for helping you understand how effective our protest is, we need to help you understand what it was proposed at, how much we got reduced, and what the end result was. Then, if I was to charge money, which I am not, then I would think that there is a very high level of accuracy that needs to be taken into account if I'm going to charge you 50% or a flat fee of 50% of what I saved you. Then that number becomes really, really important, and I would ask for absolute full transparency. I would expect to give you full transparency if I was doing the calculation based on that. But here's the problem. Number one, I'm not charging, so I feel like it's better for people to know how effective I was. When everybody wants to figure out how much it's going to actually save them, guess what? Even after all of this crazy stuff, even this is misleading because the tax rates haven't been established. All the tax rates for all of this stuff, all these things, that's all 2023 tax rates. The tax rates for 2024 haven't been calculated. So even if I went to the absolute fullest to try and make it not misleading, this absolutely ridiculous property tax system makes it so that I cannot give you a number that is not misleading, because I can't give you what the 2024 tax rates will be. It's just madness. I just can't stress it enough. Welcome to my world, Jay. It's madness. So the best thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to charge you, and we're all just going to have a little peace of mind to take that number, that see if Chandler's doing all right for us here, and then we're going to let the government and the crazy system be misleading, and then I'm going to keep going at it trying to explain this stuff as well as I can, and I'm going to keep doing all of this stuff as much as I can and trying to change the whole system, because that's what it's all about. This whole thing is just screwed up, and that's the reason why I'm so engaged on this side, is because no matter how hard I try, we're fighting a losing battle here. We're getting hosed, but my intention is to make it digestible, understandable, applicable, without losing 90% of the audience, because as soon as I make a video that's longer than about 2 minutes, that's exactly what happens. In fact, you get about a 40% or 60% fall off rate within the first 30 seconds of a video, and it's like, well, what am I going to do here? I'm going to put it in a nutshell and try and do everything I can to serve people at the highest level. And if I don't charge you anything, then oh well. Hopefully I'll just get a bunch of thank yous, which is what I'm getting. But at the same time, hopefully I'll get an opportunity to explain stuff like this so I can help the people that do have a desire to go deeper, that ability to dive deeper and see what's really behind all this. It's madness. It's madness, Jay. All right. If you have any other questions, holler back. That's 18 minutes of a video just to get to the conclusion that it's impossible to not be misleading. It's just horrible. All right. Appreciate you, Jay. Have a great day. Bye.